Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this part of HR Week 2022. Again, lots of great content already here on People-Centric HR Day. Again, every single one of the days this week has its theme, has its topic, had its dedication, and today it's all about people-centric HR, employer branding, experience, talent management, and pretty much everything in between. Already an eventful, productive day already, and we continue that certainly right now in the same manner with one of our expert talks. Now, this is all about catalysts or roadblockers or catalysts. I'll leave it up to the next two speakers to share with you their perspectives and help you make up your mind as to which one it actually is. So first of all, let me just introduce right now Steve, Usher and Shani Persson to our community. Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Peter, how are you?
Yeah, doing well, doing really well. How are you? How are you two doing?
I'm very, very well. I'm actually on time this year, which is a bonus.
Oh, I would love to know, right, first of all, I don't need to know, but I would love to know, where are you right now? Steve, where are you?
Yeah, so I'm in a very snowy Stockholm right now.
All right, very snowy. You look warm though. It looks warm with the pink light behind you. In the corner of the room, you look very warm. I can just imagine it's white. Is it snowing?
It's beautiful, yeah. Very beautiful.
Beautifully snowing outside and very cold. Shani, where are you, I wonder?
I'm a bit further south, so I'm in Malmö in the south of Sweden. We don't have any snow anymore, unfortunately, but a little bit more light, so we'll take it.
Wonderful. Listen, I'm going to leave it up to you now. Towards the end, if there are any questions, I'll pop back in. They'll bring me back in, and then we'll have a little bit of an exchange in terms of the perspectives and the questions from the people that are listening to you. But in the meantime, take it away.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, I'm just wondering about our presentation, is whether we can actually see this. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, fantastic.
As you can see, I'm actually on brand. So this is why I have a pink light behind me, just to give you some context in my world today. Shani, let's kick off.
Yeah, so welcome, and we're Wonder. I'm Shani, as you've heard, and Steve, and our mission is more human experiences. And what does that actually mean? It means we want to create experiences for people in the workplace that help them thrive. And as a second step, hopefully that the businesses and communities that they are a part of will also thrive.
Absolutely. And it took us, it didn't take us that long, but our tagline, more human experiences, also a big hashtag of ours. We think about more human experiences in two different contexts. If you think about an employee journey and all of the processes or even experiences going on, how do you create them or develop them as more human? How do you humanize them in a much more experiential way? And then, of course, we can never have enough human experiences. So how do we add more into the existing workplace in a much more intentional way? So that's the brilliant work and things that we're really passionate about in terms of what we do and how we go about it.
Yes.
Come on, let's go.
Let's get the tech to collaborate as well.
Yeah, sorry about this.
That's always the tricky part.
There we go.
So our headline, catalysts or blockers, what are HR in this? Because we're living through a pretty huge shift in paradigms right now, and a lot of companies are in doubt of what the future should or could look like. So we want to maybe bring it down a notch and actually explore what are the mindsets and the ways of working that might act as blockers or catalysts of this change, because it all starts with us, the people who are working and the people who are within the organizations. And so we're going to take you through a few different steps. First, just kind of out of the bubble, expand what's the perspective on this shift that's going on, and what do these different mindsets actually mean? What could they look like? And what does it look like in reality? How does it play out for us? And how might we work with that? So that's our plan for these condensed 25 minutes.
And also we're going to riff a little bit. So this isn't this is not like a staged step-by-step kind of super prepared presentation. We love to riff and just kind of co-create together, which hopefully we'll be doing throughout this. Hopefully this works now. Yes, it does.
It does.
And so, look, so one of the things that we just want to just ask the audience and talk to the audience about is around experimentation. And, as we know, I shared this slide in my presentation last year, and I think it's still poignant today. This hasn't changed from last year or the year before, is that we've continued to be in some of the most disruptive times. And one of the things around design in particular is the real key to this is experimentation. And so one of the things we'll be sharing is around some of the mindsets that really support experimentation, and ultimately, which also doesn't as well from our perspective. We can't see the chat, so I'll move on to the next one. So look, the first kind of outer bubble to ignite you, to get you thinking a little bit differently. So you're all in your little bubbles somewhere in the world. You're all in your own bubble from a HR professional or in the roles that you're undertaking. And we're just going to kind of diverge out a little bit. This is actually an example taken from a book called The Cathedral and the Bazaar. And this was shared by a brilliant guy, co-founder of Studio Banana in Switzerland, who very much specialize in workplace experience or workplace design in particular. And I love this example. And I wanted to share this because we really felt this is kind of really symbolizes some of the situations that we've kind of found ourselves in, and this kind of middle ground that we're definitely kind of trying to recalibrate to in one way or another. So let's just have a look at the cathedral for a minute. What does it represent from a kind of corporate organizational point of view? If you look at that image in isolation, what does it kind of represent? Structure, hierarchy, leadership potentially. This is the kind of environments that for so long we were so used to traveling to as one of our places that we spend our time and experience on a day-to-day basis. And this is kind of what we're trying to kind of look at now, given that we've now moved into a new paradigm, which probably more of as a representation of a bazaar, where you've got multiple stores. What could this kind of look like? We've got this kind of divergence of expertise. We've got open sharing. It's quite messy. It's probably quite smelly. And also it's more chaotic. And we've kind of gone from this kind of very structured paradigm into a very unstructured paradigm very, very quickly. And so some of the questions that we think here and reflect on is, what does leadership look like in a cathedral? Or what does leadership look like in a bazaar? And how are we shifting some of those leadership styles between these two kind of environments? Shani, anything to add?
Yeah, I think so. I'm also looking at these two pictures, same as you, and kind of thinking, especially around leadership, that in the cathedral, it's very facing one direction, right? We come in and there's this, a god or something, one thing to look up to, and one very clear direction. Whereas in a bazaar, it's much more who attracts attention and who gains the popularity. And this is not to say that either is also necessarily the perfect and desired state, but rather that we are kind of in between these two paradigms now, and trying to figure out kind of what does it mean for us? How does it mean we should be setting up work? And I'm also thinking at the cathedral in terms of the one given space that we've also been used to, like having the office be the one space we go to work. And all of a sudden it isn't that anymore. Now it's a flexible thing where we can be much more asynchronous, where we can make different types of choices. And what does that do to us when we don't really know how to deal with the current choices? So this is kind of a big part in this paradigm, is that we're kind of shifting both in terms of, as you're saying, leadership, also in terms of workplace. So many different things play into this, but I think this is a really nice analogy of exactly kind of the shift that we're sitting in between at the moment.
Absolutely. And we're seeing a lot of discussions, definitely in the last couple of weeks, and that we've been involved with, is, enticing people back to the office. And, when we've kind of, it's one of the most common challenges right now. For us, it's kind of thinking around the leadership style. If you're thinking about an organization in terms of its culture, quite stiff, quite structured, now in this new paradigm, that is one of the biggest challenges that we are seeing, is trying to adapt that culture to a new way of working, particularly driven by potentially old school or old thinking, very kind of linear mindset or leadership, is causing some big conflict right now, both in terms of culture, but also making decisions, and not so much the what decisions, but more the how people are making and delivering on decisions.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were going to ask the audience, but we're just going to just share a little bit about us in terms of what some of the challenges that we're seeing at the moment in the marketplace from an EX perspective. And we've kind of already shared just loosely around the leadership style. What else are you seeing, Shani? What else have we seen in this year in some of the work that we're seeing in some of the challenges?
There's a lot going on, I would say. There's a huge shift in competence that is kind of coming up now in terms of how does HR go from being more of a service organization into a more strategic partner? What does that require from us as HR professionals, for example? So that's one big part, I would say, that I'm seeing. But if I'm looking to the perspective of the employee, then it's definitely kind of also finding this balance between clarity, direction, framework, and also super personalization. And how do you find that kind of middle way between those things? What about you, Steve? What have you been capturing?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges I'm seeing consistently is decisions being made in a room, in a function, based on their assumptions of what they think is right. So, even from just from a lacking of real grounding around what those needs are. So, if we go back to the cathedral thinking, which is more of a top-down culture with very little real depth of understanding of the needs of employees, whereas in a bazaar you need to understand more about all those different stalls, all the different needs of people going into the bazaar. So it's, for me, I see that consistently and that goes beyond just doing surveys. We need to be very clear about that. Surveys are useful, but don't necessarily tell you the why. So I think that's one of the things for me, is just that real, if we're going to create better experiences, you've got to design it with and for your people, not just design them in isolation and hope that they're adopted widely across the organization. And that's not just from a tech point of view, that's from an experience point of view too.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what you were saying around enticing. So enticing being more than just like before, maybe it was a bit more tolerated that you force people through policy, through different actions to do certain things. Whereas now people have had different experiences and are also experiencing a lot of different things in the space as consumers, as people outside of work. And there is something to be said about understanding how we might drive more of the intrinsic motivation of people to actually make choices for themselves in the workplace. And that does, as you say, require that we actually come back and listen to them, for sure.
It's one of the few challenges. Okay, let's move on. Antti?
Okay, yeah. So let's talk about this. We wanted to break this down a little bit because in this big shift that's going on, we of course represent people experience, and experiences are built off of the back of empathy and listening and a lot of different things. And there are different types of people that will, in essence, either block a shift or drive a shift. And so we just wanted to make this a little bit clearer and draw the picture for you in terms of how you can recognize these people in your organization, or how you can recognize these qualities within yourself and see, because everything starts with us. So this is Antti, and he is a typical blocker. And what does that mean? Let's just break it down a little bit. And let's see if we got the tech with us as well. So Antti, he's very much kind of focused on the one right answer. There is a silver bullet. I'm going to look for it. I'm going to implement it. That's it. There's only one right answer to do the things across any organization. Then being right equals being smart is what it says here. It's like there's a lot of value on being right individually. So this is a person who will fight to be in that place. And if they don't get there, they will feel a little bit less competent, less confident. And they're always wanting to be in that position of being the last person to say something. Seeking proof. So here, and I think, yeah, so I just want to also highlight that seeking proof is also good. But possibility in the sense that in every situation, even when it's not going as we're thinking, there's a possibility to make changes. So instead of then kind of focusing on, you know, how might I formulate this, Steve? Maybe help me out. How do I formulate this in a clear way?
Seeking proof, not possibility.
Yeah.
It goes back to this kind of one right answer. So it's this thing around, you know, finding multiple opportunities rather than just the one. So it's, you know, if they're seeking possibility, then it's not just about honing in and quite narrow. It's looking at multiple different ways in which they can kind of tackle, you know, the challenge or the solution, or create the solution around that. So it's more about narrowness of the thinking, for sure.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for adding that.
Hey, no worries. That's what we're there. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, and this also, a lot of this goes back to the being right, as we're seeing here, like winning debates. You'll see that, you know, it's more about the winning. It's less about asking questions. It's more about leading through just putting your perspective out there and not actually being curious about other people. This is a big one, being threatened by the unknown. Most of us don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. Let's face it. And so when you're threatened by the unknown, you also resist steps towards finding solutions that aren't fitting your image of the one answer or the one thing that this person has decided in terms of being right, and feeling really like, well, this might threaten my position or might threaten my security or safety. So for sure, that's a huge thing. Yes, numbers are more real than people, for sure. And it's also about forgetting the people behind the numbers in that sense, because of course we're, you know, huge on having data, but making sure it's the right one and that it's actually based on having listened to people. It's very easy to distance yourself from who you're solving for when you're just looking at the numbers. And that's something that this person does with real ease.
And before we move on to the next slide, I just want to also credit Jean Lee Edgar, who in my mind is the kind of godmother of design thinking, based in the US. And a lot of these points that raised here was part of her research around how leaders experience design, and how important that we need to be influenced in the antes of the world in order to realize the true possibility and opportunities from a design thinking and a design-led approach when solving some of these real kind of employee challenges. Or any challenge, actually, any business challenge. So let's look at some of the characteristics of a Sally. So this is Sally. I have to say, I really relate to Sally, obviously, just mainly because on my own personal journey is when I genuinely discovered design thinking, and when I went through the training and start to really apply it into my own mindset and my own way of working and my own thinking and experimenting and trying and evolving, iterating, all of these wonderful words that we use, but it's really is for me life-changing, and it can genuinely shift. If you can really influence leaders to shift in this way, I think could have a profound effect on or the future organization, for sure. So look, let's just quickly run through how we recognize Sally. So Sally, courage to try new things, not shy to fail. Failure is actually celebrated. Failing gloriously is one I like to, is one of my favorites. Curious to explore different perspectives, so not narrow, loves to understand the different perspectives, say, of onboarding or candidate experience. If you're thinking about onboarding as journey design, then you're thinking about the IT person, you're thinking about hiring managers, you're thinking about the office manager, you're thinking about the new hire, all of the different people and perspectives that really make up and actually touch that journey. And also get experimental about your approach. This is a really big one, is test and move forward with it. Test and experiment, and then ask the questions. Really, really important. Co-creation is at the heart. It's one of our biggest kind of values, if you want to call it, or ways of working here at Wonder. It's when you see co-creation happening, particularly as silo busters, and you're breaking down those internal silos, it's an amazing and beautiful thing to see. And also, Sally is grounded in understanding the needs of the people. So really understanding and getting insights about the intrinsic needs, wants, desires of those in which you are designing for. And this is one of my favorites as well, is Sally avoids jumping straight to ideas and solutions. It's safe to say we're never short of ideas, but the challenge here is to stay in the problem a little bit longer, which isn't always easy, to get deeper and fall in love with the problem first through thorough insight and understanding. So just quickly, because we've got 5 left, let's go.
We've got 5 left. So just to exemplify to you what this might actually look like in your organization, I'm going to take you on a little trip here with this picture. So this is how we build solutions today a lot of times in HR. And if we're not building them human-centrically, then definitely that's what we're doing. As you can see, there are 2 paths here. We set them up and we hope that our employees will walk them and use the solutions that we create for them. But they don't. So what is it that happens? Employees choose a different path. They choose this walked up path here in the middle because it's quicker for them and it serves their purposes better. And what do we often do then as HR organizations? Well, we set up a little fence and we hope that that will push them back into the solutions that we made. Instead, what do people do? They create new paths for themselves because they serve them better. And this perfectly illustrates the difference between an Auntie and a Sally, really, in terms of how you actually carry out your work. If you are a Sally, then you are curious about the path that people are already walking on and how you might make that path easier for them. So I think maybe just here, give a little encouragement to you to look around yourself. Who and how do you recognize catalysts within your organization? But also bring it back to you. What are you doing that is a catalyst behavior versus a blocker behavior? And where is your organization at in terms of these things? Do you want to add anything to that, Steve?
No, I think this slide shares it all in terms of, what do you hear from the blockers versus the catalysts? And, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I hope you're starting to get a bit of a sense of the differences between what a blocker says and what a catalyst says, based around the mindset in which they have. And I'm sure that some of you listening out there will have people in your organization or previous managers or leaders in the organization who display some of these characteristics. And these are the things that we've really got to change, not so much to change them completely and make them all designers, because that's not the right answer, but it's just more finding ways in which how do we not only convince, but partner with the blockers in a way that brings value into the organization and creates real movement and sustainable change inside the business.
Yeah, and I like the point you're making about this is not everybody needs to be the same, but it is easier to collaborate when everybody's open to collaboration. So as you're saying, how can we partner? I really, really like that.
Yeah. So one of our final messages is don't be Auntie, be a Sally.
Be a Sally.
Be a Sally. And one of the things we just want to say is if you are a Sally or you are thinking about, okay, I've got some of these characteristics or some of this mindset in particular, is how do we actually influence the Aunties? Because this is something that we really genuinely need to deliver on. So we just want to leave you with 3 key points to consider. Shani, you do the first one?
Yeah. So ignite new ideas through empathy, which is, go back and listen to your people. That's where your ideas are. That's where your opportunities are to make the big and important changes, is to actually listen to the people in your organization and empathize with their journey and their struggles.
Yeah. I would say also inspire action by inviting others to co-create. Please do not underestimate the power of co-creation. Break those silos down. If you're trying to fix candidate experience, invite IT, invite someone from sales, invite somebody from customer success, whether it's kind of, from engineering, and start to converge around a common challenge in the organization. It is amazing what us humans can do when we co-create. I cannot stress that enough. And the last one, I'll go, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Design based on journeys. Find the journeys. If you're trying to just create the movement, start somewhere, start with a small journey, because that can bring value. Find where the ROI or the KPIs are that align into that journey, and really start to make an influence in a very small and very captive way in order to build that kind of value in terms of where you can create the most impact in your business. Anything to add to finish off?
No, I think that was a great wrap up, and we're kind of exactly on time as well. So
I think so. Good stuff. Thank you for joining, everyone.
Fantastic. Absolutely. Spot on time to the second.
Here's Peter.
Listen, unfortunately, there are not unfortunately, maybe because no one has asked a question, that doesn't mean anything. In fact, that could just simply mean that everybody's satisfied and all happy. So, but everybody listening, you're curious, you'd like to know more, just head over to, join Shani and Steve over on LinkedIn, Wonder as well. They've also got a page there as well. Check that out. And again, reach out to them and start the conversation there, move forward and see where that unfolds. In the meantime, listen, Shani, Steve, thank you so much. From a kind of warm, well, not really that warm, but kind of mild climate, Belgrade, to a cold and Christmassy winter Malmo. You're in Malmo? No, Shani's in Malmo. Steve, you're in Stockholm, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Peter.
Wonderful. There we are. As you can see, a very global HR week. We know no boundaries online at all. I'm flickering again. I kind of like it when I flicker. It's kind of strange, but I do like it. Right, I have to tell you, right? So a bit of a break. I just popped down. I'm in actually I'm in the Mona Hotel here in Belgrade, and I actually went downstairs to grab a coffee. And as I sat down, looking like this, a guy came up to me, clicked his fingers, and he said, "I want a coffee, please." He thought I was a waiter. Do I look like a waiter? Well, I'm sure some of you are thinking, yes, I do look like a waiter. So any of you, if you come to the Mona Hotel and I'm down there and I'm waiting for a coffee, please do come up to me, but don't come up to me asking me to get you a coffee. It's not my job. This is my job. Right. Let's move on. We will now have a short break. Because we're moving on to we're moving on to a healthy, productive discussion all about employer branding, but data-driven employer branding. Join us in a couple of minutes.